Move on to factoring quadratics. So we've been factoring monomials and polynomials previously. So now we move to factoring quadratics. So in this case here where we have x squared plus 13x plus 36, we want to factor this expression, we want to factor this into binomials. So if you recall, we worked on multiplying binomials previously. So now we're reversing that. Now we have to put it back into the binomial format. So the first thing we must do is put it in the form of binomials. So you put your parentheses here. Just like when you were multiplying binomials using the FOIL method. And then the next step would be to look at your second sign inside of this quadratic. It's a plus sign. That lets us know what sign we need to have inside of our binomials. But then once we find the plus sign, the first sign, when we find the second plus sign, the first sign here will let us know what sign we would need to use. Because if it's plus, you can multiply a positive times a positive, you get a positive. And if it's also plus, you can multiply a negative times a negative. But this first plus sign lets us know exactly is it going to be positive or negative inside of our binomial. So since it's a plus sign, we're going to use for the first symbol, we're going to use two pluses inside of our binomials. If this was a negative sign, we would use two negative signs inside of the binomials, okay? All right, now, the next step is to look at the 36 here. This number is what you're going to need to multiply your terms in to get it. So you have to list out, or you can list out your factors of 36, because the numbers that you use or the factors that you use to get 36 should also be the same factors that will give you 13 when you add them together. All right, so let's do it. So let's list out the factors of 36, starting off with 1. 1 times 36 will give us 36, of course. 2 times 18. Would 3 times a number give us 36? Of course it would. It'll be 3 times 12. How about 4? Yes, 4 times 9. 5 times any number will give you 36? No. How about 6? 6 times 6. How about 7? 8. 9, we already have 9, so we can stop there. Now look at your factors and see, because all of these, when you multiply them, we get 36. Now which set of factors can you add together to get 13? So if we add 1 and 36 together, we'll get 37. If we add 2 and 18 together, we'll get 20. If we add 3 and 12 together, we'll get 15. If we add 9 and 4 together, we'll get 13. And if we add 6 and 6 together, we'll get 12. And remember, we want to be able to add those two factors together to get 13. Okay? So the answer to this would be 4 and 9. All right? So these are the factors that we're going to use inside of our binomials to get a product of 36 and a sum of 13. So since we have x squared right here, we're going to put x in the beginning of our binomials, because x times x would give us x squared. And then we know the factors that we're going to use is 4 and 9. So we have 4 and we have 9 that we'll put inside of our binomials, okay? Now, how do you check to make sure this is correct? You would use the FOIL method. You can go back to that lesson on FOIL, but really briefly, for FOIL method, you're going to multiply the first two terms in each of the parentheses. So the first two here is x and x. So we're multiplying x times x, which will give us x squared. Then we're going to multiply the outer terms. The outer term is the x and the 9. So, we have x times 9, or x times 9, which is equal to 9x. Then we're going to multiply the inner terms, the inside terms here. That will be 4 times x, or x times 4. X times 4, which will give us 4x. And then we're going to multiply the last terms. The last terms are 4 and 9. So let's do that here. We'll say 4 times 9, which will give us 36. Now, if we were to write this all out, we'll write it all out in a expression form. We'll have x squared plus 9x plus 4x plus 36. Combine your like terms. We have x. We will have, let's check this here. We will have x squared plus 13x plus 36. Okay? Now, if we go back to the original, we'll see that we factored out correctly because this is what we had in the original expression, x squared plus 13x plus 36. All right? So this has been done correctly here. Okay? All right, let's try another one now. Let's try another one. Let's make this one here and see what we get. So we have d squared plus 8d plus 15. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at before we put these into binomials is we're going to look at our signs. We're going to look at the second sign first, because that lets us know what's going to be inside of our binomials, whether it's going to be it's going to come out to be positive. Now remember, for 15 you have to multiply we're going to have to multiply two terms together to get 15. But we need to find out, with those two terms that are multiplying together, if we add them together, which one of those would give us 8. Okay, so let's list out the factors of 15 to start with. So we got 1 times 15. We have 2 times, no, that won't give us 15. 3 times 5. And we have, what else do we have? Can we use 4? No. Can we use 5? We already have 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is it. So now, each one of these factors, 1 times 15 will give us 15, and 3 times 5 will give us 15. But when we add those together, which one of those will give us a sum of 8? If you said 3 times 5, you would be correct. Now, going back, look at the second sign inside of your quadratic here. It is positive. What numbers or what signs can you multiply together to get positive? You can multiply positive times positive to get positive. And you can also multiply negative times negative to get positive. So how are we going to determine which one we're going to use? Positive times positive, negative times negative. Well, look at the first sign inside of the quadratic. That lets you know which ones to use here. So in this case, it's going to be positive and positive. All right, so we have d squared. So that means that we're going to have to put d in front of our binomials here. D first. And then we said that we're going to use 3 times 5, so we can put 3 and we can put 5 in here. And this will be our answer factored out. D plus 3 times d plus 5 is the answer for this. And of course, once again, we can use the FOIL method to check to see if it is true. So this time we'll just go ahead and go all the way through with the FOIL method. So d times d is d squared. D times 5 is 5d. 3 times d is 3d. And 3 times 5 is 15. Combine like terms. 5d plus 3d is 8d. Okay, and check and see if that's what you had in the original. Is that what we had in the original? Yes, we had d squared plus 8d plus 15. Final answer is done. All right, so this has been a brief lesson on factoring quadratics or factoring trinomials. All right, there will be another lesson on this. Until then, Kwaheri.